All right, welcome to another UMLO Extra. And in this session, we're going to talk about Sparx Matrix or matrices. So we need to first understand what a matrix is and how it should be used. In a previous session, we talked about specification manager and specification views. In Sparx, there's also matrix elements and there's matrix or relationship views. So we're going to jump into that. So let's bring up our working set, and I'm just going to double click on this. You've learned what a working set is. We're going to be looking at an activity diagram. There's no relationship here. These are all composites. We're going to look at a requirements to activity diagram. We use this for analysis and drawing relevance. And we're going to look at a block diagram, which has relationships between each one of those. So in Sparx, if we go to the Design tab under the Package panel or group, we see Package Matrix. So we're going to hit this little down caret, and you're able to create a source, target, or both type matrices. And at this particular point, they're disabled, they're grayed out, and we can't do anything. Let's go ahead and just click on this. We go to a blank relationship matrix, and here we're going to talk about profiles. You can pull up profiles that we build, and we're going to get into that. So this is the relationship for the e-commerce block diagram that is stored as a profile. If we go to resources, we go to matrix profiles, and open this, you can see we have 4 profiles down here that we can choose from. So we'll get into this in just a moment, but I just want to open up by this type of matrix, and then I want to close this. There's a gap analysis. Let's go ahead and click on this. In a gap analysis, you're looking at your baseline architecture or elements, and then you're looking at your target elements. We're not going to talk about gap analysis in this episode. I'm going to save that for another episode, but there's the gap analysis matrix. So here we have a matrix specification, and these can be found down in governance. If we go down here, matrix specification, you simply drag and drop the element into your model and you give it a name. And in this case, let's just call this requirements. Yeah, I'm going to call it requirements realization. All right. You're going to come up with a naming convention that works best for you, but it needs to be meaningful because you're going to build up some specifications, some matrices or matrix that represent various objectives that you're doing in your architecture. So that's how you build one in. When you want to edit one that you've already created, like this one, you right click on it, you go down to documentation, you'll see edit matrix profile. And here you get this dialog box where you can edit and make changes. You can see here that we're looking at a source, which is the e-commerce namespace. We're looking at a target, which is the e-commerce namespace. And we're looking at specific types or elements that we want relationships with. So these are class elements. And then you're looking at your relationship type. In this case, we're looking at associations, and we want both directions. You can come in and go source. You only want to look at source to target or target to source. And you can certainly choose, well, I only want to look at these types, of relationships, associations, connectors. So that's what this one is built about or built off of. And we're going to build this one out around requirements. Now, when you first create a matrix specification and you double click to open it up, by default, it goes to the matrix specification property box here. And we can sit here and choose a source, and let's select the source as requirements. I always like to have requirements as the source here. And so that's the first thing that I choose. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here under demo. We're going to go to activity diagram requirements, add to the requirements namespace in this particular package called demo. And our focus is on activities. So we're going to select the top level. We can go down and select any of the lower levels if that's what we want to focus on, but I'm going to show you something in a moment. So we're going to choose this, requirements as the source, and we're going to leave all as the type, all right? Then for the target, we're going to select and look at activities as our choice. And in this package, we want to look at activity diagrams because we know that our activities are under this package or namespace. Let's go ahead and click OK, right? And again, the type, I'm going to leave as all, and we may edit this as we move forward. Now, down here in direction, when we're doing realization, so this is the choice that we've made for our connector in this relationship matrix, we don't want to go source to target. What we're saying is the target, in this case, activities, is implementing these requirements. It's realizing these requirements. So we want to change this target to source, and let's go ahead and hit OK. And now this has been configured. Let's double click it and open it. So in this case, in the source column, I chose requirements as the type, right? So, I mean, the package, requirements as the namespace or package. For type, I have all, so it's bringing in everything. If I want to change and look at just requirements, I'm going to hit R and go all the way down the list, and we're going to look for requirement. So now it's filtering only requirement or requirements. Don't use the requirements one. This may be something that was custom created. Use requirement, and it's looking at requirement elements. Across the target, or I should say the header or top or x-axis in this matrix, while this is the y-axis, left side, we're looking at all types in the activity diagrams namespace. And I can sit here and say, hey, I want to look at only activities, or I want to look at anything that is an action, right? And there are no requirements that have been written for actions. The blue signifies that there is null or empty relationships. And in here, if I wanted to pick a particular element at this X and Y coordinate, I could right click in here, create a relationship. Because I'm looking at the type realization, it's looking at the various realization types out of Sparx. We're using UML relationship, and I can draw a relationship because we configured target to source. You can see target to source. Now we have a relationship drawn there. And if I want to remove it, I can delete the relationship, and now it's gone. But let's look at activities, and we can see that there is no blue, meaning that all of the requirements have at least one realization from the target. So we have access, we could right click on this, we could locate in the browser that specific element, and we can see that there's a relationship from the access activity realizing this requirement. And if you want to make it wider so you can read what the requirements are, you're able to do that. So let's say I'm in here doing my scope analysis as a solution architect or application architect, and I'm looking at something like order processing, and I want it to realize something like this, this requirement 3, use machine learning to predict intent during order processing. I can right click in here and I can add a realization association here. Let's go back and look at this particular model that deals with requirements and activities. You can see now we've drawn a realization association from the model. I could certainly go from ordering and draw over here, and I want realization. I could draw it this way, and if I go back from ordering to that ordering right here, you can see that I drew a realization indicator from ordering implementing this requirement. We'll go ahead and leave this up, and let's go actually to the diagram. Let's right click in the diagram, And let's look at switch view to switch to relation matrix view. All right, I'm going to go ahead and save because it's asking me to. In this case, very similar to the specification view and other views, we're able to look at the relationship between the various elements. So over here on the left side, or y-axis, you can see source is looking at everything. We have a couple of choices here. We can look at activities, requirements, and we even have functional requirements. We're going to look at requirement type only. So it filters it out. Now over on the source, we're only looking at requirements. Let's go to target. So in target, it's seeing that, well, you have activities and you also have requirements. We want to look at activities. So now in this view, we see that we have activities and relationships. And as far as connectors, we have realization. But interestingly enough, we do not show anything from as far as a relationship here. So limit connection to elements, it's going to filter out, hey, there's no relationships that are here. But is that true in this view? Let's change the target here to requirement, and let's change the source to activity. Now we see the realization relationships from source to target. This is correct. What we're saying is that access realizes this requirement. Access implements this requirement. And if we look over in traceability, we see that access, let me minimize this, implements these requirements, these 4 requirements. And you can see that here, 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 and here. If we look at it from the requirement perspective, you can see this requirement is realized by this access. This is a true statement. Now we can limit again to connectors, but I usually don't like to do this because I like to see when I'm in a view if there are any open realization. When I'm doing my analysis, I'm trying to go in here and make sure that I'm completing my solution approach to whatever the source architecture is to the target, which is the requirements. So I can right click in here, I can switch views, or I can create a new relationship. So let's create one here, true or false. I'm just going to create one. We're going to create a realization association. So let me go ahead and select this. Now I have a realization selection from access failed to requirement 003. Let's go back. From access failed to requirement 003. We just drew this in. I can delete this from here. I'm going to hit save, right click, switch views again, and now we can see, let's get this back to requirements, and let's get this back to filtering activities. We can see that we have removed this particular relationship. All right. So you can manage your relationships from the view. You can switch views anytime that you want. You can switch views here. Let's go to specification view. We're looking at the all elements. There's the elements and the requirements in this diagram, right? This is in these namespaces, right? I hope this is making sense because for a lot of modelers, they get a little bit confused on this. We can switch back to graphical view. We can switch to relationship view. We can switch to Gantt view, and we'll get into Gantt views, project management later. So from views, you're looking from the diagram out. In relationship matrix, you're looking from the packages down, all right? And then you're choosing, well, these are the types that I want to look at, and these are the realization connections that I want to use, and these are the directions, whether it's source to target, target to source, or even both, all right? So we modified this from its original configuration, and we can prove that by closing it, launching it again, and you can see we made some changes to both the type used for the source and the type used for activity, right? Let's say you can change these as you want when you're doing your analysis, slice and dice, and then you get to what you want. Let's take the source back to requirements. We're going to hit R to get down this very long list to get to requirement, not requirements. And then we can change this one back to activity. And now we're back to where we were. And then, of course, we can size things up and down, right? But let's say I want to keep this view. I don't want to have to change it every time I come in here. So there's a couple reasons why you'd want to do this. And there's a couple of reasons why you want to keep this. You could save this. So you go to Options, Profiles, Save as New Profile. Now, what's very important here is that you give it a unique name, because if you look in profiles, we already have activity requirements. What's that about? Let's click on it. Oh, well, we already have it. So we've already created a profile. Let's look at something else. Nothing for these sources. So we already have one. If we go back here, click it again. If we go back here, there we go. We're back to the original, right? So I might want to keep this because I want the ability to slice and dice my source and target, because there might be other elements within these namespaces that I want to keep, or I want to save it as a profile so that it very quickly gets to what I want. Let's talk more about profiles. Let's go ahead and close this matrix. We're back here at our storefront landing page, and let's go to design, and let's go to package matrix. So when I bring this up, it remembers the last one we had. Let's choose e-commerce. I want to pick one, activity, action views. We did that one already. There's nothing there. I want to go to e-commerce connectors. So right from this, I can use profiles to jump around. Let's go to the one that we created just now, requirements relations. This is an element. This is an element. E-commerce connections is an element that's in here. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. We're in design tab. I'm going to select matrix again, and it remembers the last one we were. And this one happens to be called the e-commerce connections. So in this particular case, we're looking at this document and we're looking in the same namespace as source to target. And here we have the direction as both. We want to look at source to target. Now we're looking at source to target. Let's look at target to source. Now we're looking down from target to source. So you can see that data supply is connected using association to cloud data. If I change the association, I'm just going to pick anything. You can see there's no such a link between these elements. I come back to connectors, resets, and these are the associations that I have. And I can see I have two elements that are not connected to anything else. So I look at the block diagram, I have two elements that are not connected unless the connections are hidden. And in relationship matrix, you're able to see that, all right? So let's see here. What do I want to do? We're going to talk about overlays next because this video is getting long, and let's jump into that. I don't mean to speed this up, but this video is already getting too long, and I'll get into these more detailed as we're getting to real project delivery. But there's something called overlays in Sparx, and you can see I've got a few overlays for various diagrams, all right? In this right now, by default, it is none. So it's using the default association, but we want to do an overlay. So what is an overlay? So when you create a matrix, you can create matrix overlays to the relationships. You can apply them to the cells of the relationship matrix. You define the values that can be assigned under the overlay, whether the values must be single or can be a set or in a combination. And we'll show that in a moment. The overlay definition is actually created in tag values. So let's go to settings. Let's go to UML types. And this is why I like to bring in my tagged values. you can see that we have overlays. We have an overlay called effort. We have an overlay called impact. We have an overlay for scaled factors. And let's look at these. I'm going to close these and let's look at the overlay for this relationship matrix, which using the same source, e-commerce, in this model. So e-commerce, the associations in this model. So we want to do an overlay. In this case, let's go to effort. And you're seeing now the overlay has these letters, these values that are in here that signify the effort. Moderate, E for easy, D for difficult, C for complex. Well, how do I know that? Well, if we go back to UML types and I go to tag values and I go to effort as a matrix overlay, you can see I have defined what the overlay values are for this overlay. We have an overlay for impact, and this is what the letters in the overlay mean, the values that are being overlaid, all right? And then we have another one for scaled factors, and you can create overlays in tag values that you can use in your matrix, all right? So let's go ahead and close this. Let's apply a couple of them. So here's impact. We'll have a legend out, or within notes, we'll explain what the overlays mean or are. But we use overlays. Let's look at scaled factors. We use overlays to further analyze our relationships between various elements. In this case, it's in the same namespace, and it's pertaining to the connectivity between source and target. And I'm not going to get into scaled factors or, what impact means, but we use these to help us further understand. I'm going to go back to none, the relevance between the elements, I want to say, in this case, applications, whether it's source to target or whether it's target to source. I can apply an overlay. All right. I hope this video is helping you. This is an area that is extremely powerful in Sparx. You're slicing and dicing your data, and it really helps to do analysis as you're an architect or any other stakeholder looking at the relevance between elements that or perspectives that you are trying to reach, all right? Achieve. Perspectives you're trying to achieve. Because I don't want to get back to TOGAF, the Open Group Architecture Framework, but I, as a solution architect, I wear a lot of different hats. I want to look at it the perspective of the business client. I want to look at it the perspective from the developer or the application architect. I want to look at it from the perspective, especially when doing estimating or assessing the size and shape of a particular delivery from a project management perspective. And we're all trying to achieve different objectives. Relationship manager, Matrix Specification manager allows you to slice and dice your data, your intelligence within your model. And I use a lot of different modeling tools, and this Sparx is pretty much, I want to say 90 to 95% of the time, the modeling tool that I'm using to deliver architecture that I'm working with clients, whether they're very small projects or I work projects that are tens of millions of dollars, and time to market, budget. These are all things that everyone is trying to manage as close to real time as possible. Well, in Sparx, you can do that. In any other tool, not really. If you're only interested in drawing boxes and lines and maintaining your content in a wiki or Word documents or Office 365, then go for it. If you want to manage your data, later on in this channel, we're getting into using that data for analytics up to and including machine learning. So we're getting into some very advanced areas. I've spent a long time in this video just touching on the power of matrices, specification manager, and these tools that we're going to use to deliver the architecture in our series. So thanks very much for watching. And until the next episode, happy modeling.